One thing we could say about Bering Sea Gold is that there's no shortage of drama, but there is a shortage of some details that people are curious about, like who owns all the offshore gold claims in Nome? And the answer is obviously your mom. First thing I want to tell you is that we know that the show calls them claims. They're not claims, they're actually leases for the most part. There are some claims up there, but the most popular claims, Claim 14, Claim, Tom Cod, they're leases from the state of Alaska. The leases are sold as a 10-year non-competitive lease from the state at auction. So what that means is that somebody buys the lease and then they basically pay the state rent, and the state collects 3% of the gold per year. So that's two different things, not just rent to the state, but 3% royalty. Throughout that 10-year period, lease owners have the option to sublease to other miners. And it could be anywhere from 3 miners to 50 miners. It sort of just depends on the lease owner. So the lease owners will collect a royalty from the subleasers and then also pay a royalty to the state. And then so they'll basically be able to collect that difference as profit. Some of the more famous areas are leases, but they're not all leases out there. Some of them are claims, and some of them are open recreational areas where anybody with the right equipment can mine. Let's just quickly go over some of the more well-known leases. One of the most famous leases, and also the largest offshore lease that's portrayed on the show, is Tom Cod. It's got 2,000 acres, and it's actually a bunch of smaller leases all just kind of combined into one. Tom Cod is currently owned by 2 people, Sean Pomeranke, who you might have heard of, and Dave McCauley. Dave McCauley's had it for a long time. Sean just got into it recently. The next one is the Lease 56, which is owned by Vernon Atkinson, and he won that in the most recent auction sale back in 2020.
It's actually Adkisson. There's no N. Do you know that?
Adkinson?
Adkisson.
Adkinson? So it's Vernon.
You keep putting a consonant in there where there's not. And
what do I say?
You say Atkinson or Adkidson?
So it's Adkinson? Wait, no. Adkinson. Adkisson.
Are you?
Adkisson?
Yeah, that's it.
Adkisson?
Yeah, that's it.
Jeez, I had no idea. Why don't you put some N's in there, Vern? What's your problem? So out of all the leases available that year in 2020, Vern's was the largest at 375 acres. The last one is Lease 14, which your mom owns. It's mined by myself and the Eroica and 3 other dredges. The unique thing about 14 is that it's very competitive because it's so close to town, easy to get to. But the claim owners, the lease owners, made an agreement to where only 4 dredges can be operating at a single time. So unlike other leases, Tom Cod, etc., that are just kind of crowded with dredges fighting for space, 14 is pretty limited. So the competition to get onto 14 is high. I think one of the most important moments of my gold mining career was when I was able to score a spot on 14, gosh, 8 years ago? 8 or 9 years ago? I don't know, I lose track of time. But it was a really pivotal moment in my career being able to get access to that lease. The other unique and really cool thing about mining up in Nome is that there are 2 rec areas on the east and west side. And they've been mined by hundreds and hundreds of miners over the years, including most recently Zeke and the Kellys, and basically everybody on the show at some point or another. Anybody can come mine those areas as long as you have the right specifications for equipment. One is limited to 6-inch, one is limited to 8-inch. And they need to be diver operated, they can't be mechanical dredges. Basically, if you're watching a very small or very experimental dredge on TV, they're likely in the rec area because they probably don't have access to one of the more competitive leases. The lease owners prefer that their ground is only operated by professionals with 8 or 8-inch dredges or greater, or mechanical dredges that actually produce gold. Every 10 years, in theory, the state of Alaska auctions off leases that are up for renewal. And the most recent one they had was they auctioned off 11 leases in 2020. I'm not like entirely sure of the rules, but I'm pretty sure if you already own a lease and you're current on your payments and you don't want to let it go, you can just renew automatically in 10 years. But the ones that were up for auction were ones that hadn't been paid on or mined on, and the owners were not interested in renewing. The other thing too is that in order to keep a hold of the leases, you have to show that you're producing on them. Even if you're just going out there and prospecting, you have to show that there's activity. You can't just kind of let it go to waste. Before that, you couldn't get your hands on a lease since 2011, when there were 83 leases up for auction, which is a lease sale that I attended because it was my first season up in Nome ever. Then there was almost 24,000 acres sold by the state. According to the DNR website, there's going to be another auction in 2023. It'll be interesting to see how the 2023 auction goes. I'm sure there's lots of lease owners that have fallen behind on payments or just haven't made any movement with their leases. I mean, I know of a few personally. So it'll be interesting to see who's in the running and who's bidding on what. You know, am I gonna bid on something? Maybe I'll have to watch and see. Hey, thanks for watching. And we're trying to do these videos and put out more material about the gold mining industry that's not as known on or presented on the television show. So check out other videos or go to beringseapater.com, and yeah, we're trying to put out a lot of content for you guys. And also make sure you tune in to the next season of Bering Sea Gold.